Some corners of the world seem to hold the very essence of beauty. They have been shaped by millennia of art, culture, and human passion. They have witnessed the rise of empires, inspired artists, and shaped the destiny of humanity. And it is in Europe that all of this takes form. A continent surprisingly small and yet infinitely rich, with the highest concentration of UNESCO World Heritage Sites in the world. Here rise some of the most visited cities on the planet, alongside villages forgotten by time, and natural wonders that take your breath away. Today, we take you on a journey to discover the 100 most beautiful places in Europe. Among them, hidden gems and unmissable places. Prague. The Vltava River divides the city into two worlds, and only the medieval bridges managed to hold together the two worlds it created. Prague Castle, the largest castle complex in the world, dominates the city from atop its hill, guarding within itself the magnificent St. Vitus Cathedral. The cobblestone streets of the historic center follow medieval layouts, while the astronomical clock in Old Town Square has been marking time since 1410 with mechanisms that still work. Art Nouveau buildings alternate with Gothic palaces, creating a unique architectural mosaic where every era has left its mark. And then there's Charles Bridge, an ancient artery connecting the old town to the castle district. And it's much more than a simple crossing. Indeed, it's an open-air art gallery where 30 Baroque statues have watched over passers-by for over 3 centuries. Venice. A city that has no streets, but canals. Here you move by boat, between Renaissance and Byzantine palaces that are reflected in the canals themselves. St. Mark's Square is the heart of the city, with its golden basilica and the bell tower rising above the lagoon. Bridges connect islands like invisible threads, and each neighborhood guards a distinct identity. Thousands of wooden poles sunk into lagoon mud hold the entire city. Oak, larch, and elm planted centuries ago, which submerged, have become hard as stone. Isle of Skye. The basalt cliffs rise from the sea while the wind shapes the hills, now for centuries. Here the landscape changes with every passage of light, transforming valleys and promontories into a natural theater, where geology tells millions of years. The rock formations of the Quiraing are born from ancient landslides that created pinnacles and ridges, while the fairy pools collect crystalline waters among volcanic rocks. The fishing villages cling to the coast, witnesses of a Gaelic culture that resists through language and traditions. The fog often arrives suddenly and envelops everything. Then it dissolves, revealing panoramas that seem to belong to another time, with nature and history intertwining in every stone and every wave. Swiss Alps. "4,000 meters, or 13,123 feet of altitude, mark the border between Earth and sky. Glaciers still shape the valleys today, although each year they retreat by a few meters. Villages cling to slopes, connected by funiculars and trains that climb impossible gradients. The water from streams descends crystalline from glaciers, feeding lakes where every detail of surrounding peaks is reflected. In summer, pastures fill with flowers and grazing cows. In winter, instead, snow covers everything, with a layer that can exceed 3 meters or 10 feet. The peaks, moreover, have names that evoke fear and respect, earned after centuries of challenges between man and mountain. Vienna. Imperial palaces occupy entire neighborhoods, witnesses of an empire that once governed half of Europe. Classical music was born in the halls of these buildings, where Mozart and Beethoven played for emperors and princesses. Today, historic cafes are still the hub of city life, and people spend hours there reading newspapers. The historic center, a UNESCO World Heritage Site, encompasses centuries of architectural splendor among cobblestone alleys and majestic squares. The museums preserve collections that tell the story of millennia of European history, while the streets resonate with music, carriages, and the voices of a city that has never ceased to be a capital. London. Along the Thames winds a city where 2,000 years of history coexist with the present. Big Ben has marked time since 1859, while the Tower of London guards the British crown jewels, between Norman walls that have seen kings and prisoners. In its 1,572 square kilometers, or 607 square miles, live 9 million people who speak over 300 languages, creating an unprecedented cultural mosaic. Camden and borough markets offer flavors from every corner of the planet, and from there one reaches museums preserving testimonies of the empire that once covered a quarter of emerged lands. The underground transports 5 million passengers every day through 11 lines, connecting neighborhoods where Georgian architecture meets glass skyscrapers. But it's when fog reveals itself and wraps even Hyde Park that the city reveals its most authentic soul. Faroe Islands. Eighteen islands emerge from the Atlantic Ocean, midway between Iceland and Norway. The vertical cliffs exceed 600 meters, or 1,969 feet, in height, with wind blowing almost every day of the year, shaping a landscape where trees don't grow and grass stays low. Villages cling to coasts protected by narrow bays, which for centuries have allowed fishermen to find shelter from storms. Waterfalls descend directly into the sea, while mountains disappear among low clouds, which cover peaks for much of the year. The population is barely 50,000 people and lives in colored houses with grass roofs since Viking times. Hallstatt. Colorful houses overlook the Alpine lake, squeezed between water and mountain, in a space that seems impossible to inhabit. The village grows vertically, with dwellings clinging to rock through staircases and passages that connect one level to another. Flowered windows decorate 16th century facades, while carved wooden balconies protrude over clear waters that reflect every architectural detail. The The central square gathers a few dozen square meters, where village life has concentrated for centuries, surrounded by alleys so narrow that two people struggle to pass together. Boats moored along the shores are still the most practical means of getting around, while a road carved in rock connects the village to the rest of the valley. Paris. Strolling through Paris is like leafing through the pages of a history book. Every neighborhood tells something unique. The Seine flows through the heart of the city, dividing it between rive gauche and rive droite, which would be right bank and left bank. The first is the bohemian side, with cafes frequented by artists and intellectuals. The other hosts famous museums and grand boulevards. But it's not only history that defines this city. Indeed, historic buildings coexist with modern squares, markets, and urban gardens with a relaxed atmosphere. From the elegant shop windows on the Champs-Élysées to the narrow and welcoming streets of the Marais, every corner hides something worth discovering. You can also enjoy a sunset on the steps of Montmartre, or stroll along the Seine with the lights of the Eiffel Tower reflected on the water. Istanbul. Two continents touch here, separated only by the waters of the Bosphorus. The city preserves mosques that were once Christian basilicas, bazaars where trading has gone on for centuries, and palaces that have seen sultans and emperors pass by. Every stone tells a different story, with domes reflected in the sea, while ferries cross the border between Europe and Asia, dozens of times a day. The historic center concentrates the most important monuments and remains the starting point for understanding Istanbul's complex identity. The Hagia Sophia Basilica, for example, was built in 537 and remained the largest church in the world for nearly 1,000 years, before becoming a mosque in 1453. There's also the Grand Bazaar, which contains over 4,000 shops under a single roof, covered by decorated vaults. Lofoten Islands. A chain of islands connected by bridges and tunnels beyond the Arctic Circle. Winter brings storms and northern lights that cross the night sky, while in summer, the sun doesn't set for weeks on end, tinting everything with continuous light. Italian Lake District. The mountains descend directly into the water, creating natural mirrors which change color with the seasons. Historic villas and medieval villages overlook the shores, while the Alps protect the region from northern winds. Lake Como extends for 146 square kilometers, or 56 square miles, with an inverted Y shape surrounded by mountains that exceed 2,000 meters, or 6,562 feet. Its waters reach depths of over 400 meters, or 1,312 feet, making it one of the deepest lakes in Europe. Lake Maggiore, instead, is the second in size and crosses the border between Italy and Switzerland, hosting the Borromean Islands with their Baroque gardens and noble palaces. Then there's also Lake Garda, which is the largest in Italy and benefits from a Mediterranean microclimate that allows the cultivation of olive trees, lemons, and vines. Ferries have connected the shores of these lakes for centuries, tracing routes that once served commerce. Cliffs of Moher. "200 meters, or 656 feet, of sheer rock over the Atlantic Ocean. The waves have sculpted these bastions for millions of years, layer after layer. The coast extends for 8 kilometers or 5 miles, drawing a natural barrier that has protected the island from invasions for centuries. On stormy days, the ocean rises until it licks the peaks, covering everything with white foam. When instead the sky is clear, the gaze reaches the Aran Islands. Greek Islands. A journey through Europe almost inevitably passes through the Greek islands, where the Cyclades and Ionian Islands await those seeking the Mediterranean in its true essence. Santorini is what remains of an apocalyptic eruption, daughter of a volcano that exploded thousands of years ago and forever changed these waters. The white and blue houses today climb the walls of the caldera, overlooking a sea that has invaded its crater. Not far away at Akrotiri, A Minoan city rests under ash for millennia, frozen in the moment of eruption, as happened at Pompeii. Mykonos instead lives by another rhythm, with windmills watching over the port, Little Venice extending over the water, and when the sun sets with bars and beach clubs lighting up until dawn. Further north, Corfu guards some of the most transparent beaches and waters of Greece. And then there's Crete, an island that hides stories as ancient as the Minotaur's labyrinth, wild nature like the Samaria Gorge, and beaches where the sand turns pink at Elafonici. Andalusia. In Spain's far south, this region lives on contrasts. Snow-capped mountains, cities with Moorish past, white villages and sunny coasts. Its identity is the result of centuries of encounters, with Phoenicians, Romans, Arabs, and Christians leaving indelible marks. Granada houses the Alhambra, palace that interweaves gardens and Islamic architecture. Seville shows the Giralda, Plaza de España, and neighborhoods like Santa Cruz, with narrow alleys and shaded squares. Córdoba preserves the Mezquita, which is a cathedral built inside a mosque, symbol of complex heritage. To the north, the Sierra Morena and the Sierra Nevada offer trails and panoramas, while to the south, the Costa del Sol alternates between tourist harbors and windswept cliffs. Flamenco culture is born here, in neighborhood venues and popular festivals. Olive oil produced in vast countryside accompanies simple dishes like gazpacho or salmorejo. Finally, there are also port cities such as Cadiz, facing the Atlantic and recalling stories of explorers. Albanian Riviera. A scenic road runs between the mountains and the sea in the south of the country, overlooking hidden coves, white pebble beaches, and waters that shift from green to deep blue. The Albanian Riviera is not a continuous line, but a sequence of small worlds. Here there's Durmi with its white houses, Himar, suspended between sea and hill, Keparo, climbing up the slopes, and Saint-Michel, looking toward Corfu. Among pines, olive trees, and scents of time, the coastline alternates wild stretches with villages silent out of season. Here, old boats are still pulled ashore by hand, and tourism coexists with peasant memory. Cappadocia. Wind and water have sculpted volcanic rock for millions of years, creating cone-shaped formations which extend for hundreds of kilometers. The first Christians carved churches and monasteries inside these soft stones, and then true underground cities were created. Some of these reach 8 levels deep and could host thousands of people during invasions. The characteristic sign of this area, however, are the hot air balloons, which rise at dawn when the grazing light transforms the valleys into a lunar landscape. These formations take the name of fairy chimneys and dot the horizon from times well before man's arrival. Amalfi Coast. "50 kilometers, or 31 miles of coast, where the mountain falls into the Mediterranean, with gradients exceeding 70%. Small towns climb the slopes, connected by a road that makes 180 curves between Salerno and Sorrento. Lemons grow on terraces supported by dry stone walls, producing fruits that can weigh half a kilogram or over a pound. The houses instead are painted white or in pastel colors, with flat roofs and terraces that follow Mediterranean tradition. The churches preserve their colorful domes and bell towers, visible from the sea, true landmarks for those who once sailed along these waters. Iceland. The land smokes and trembles while geothermal water gushes at 100 degrees Celsius or 212 degrees Fahrenheit among black rocks of solidified lava. "11% of the territory is covered by glaciers, shaping valleys and fjords with their millennial weight. While active volcanoes remind that the island still grows by a few centimeters or inches every year. Waterfalls plunge from basalt plateaus fed by the melting of glaciers that changes with the seasons. Here, the black of lava contrasts with the white of glaciers, while the bright green of moss covers infinite expanses of stone. The population lives concentrated on the coast, where colorful houses resist winds exceeding 150 kilometers per hour or 93 miles per hour, building a society that has learned to coexist with powerful nature and absolutely unpredictable. Dubrovnik. The walls completely surround the old town, extending for nearly 2 kilometers, or 1.2 miles, with a thickness reaching 6 meters, or 20 feet. The white marble of streets reflects sunlight, while Renaissance and Baroque palaces alternate along the Stradun, which is the main street where once trade with the East took place. The old port once hosted ships that transported spices, silk, and gold across the Mediterranean. An earthquake in 1667 destroyed much of the city, but reconstruction followed the original urban plan, and today it's also recognized as UNESCO heritage. Budapest. The Danube divides the city into 2 parts that tell different stories but complementary. Buda develops on the hills where the medieval castle dominates from above, surrounded by walls that have resisted Ottoman invasions and sieges of World War II. On the other side of the river, Pest extends on the plain, with wide boulevards and 19th century palaces that reflect the golden age of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. On the banks of Pest, the Parliament also rises, with its neo-Gothic facade of 268 meter, or 879 feet, and the dome that dominates the skyline, symbol of the unification that took place in 1873. Under the urban surface flow thermal waters that feed public baths, already frequented by the Romans. And still today, Hungarians immerse themselves in outdoor pools where steam rises while the external temperature drops below zero. This thermal tradition interweaves with Art Nouveau architecture that decorates buildings and historic cafes, creating an atmosphere where past and present coexist naturally in every neighborhood. Dolomites. Mountains rise vertically for hundreds of meters, taking on colors that change with light, passing from pale gray at dawn to intense pink at sunset. Valleys were carved by glaciers during ice ages, creating smooth and vertical walls that still challenge climbers today. Villages in the area preserve a language and traditions that date back to Romans, while trails wind between alpine pastures and large forests, which in autumn become golden before losing their needles. peaks exceed 3,000 meters, or 9,843 feet, with snow that in winter covers everything, transforming walls into ice mirrors. Barcelona. A city facing the Mediterranean, interweaving modernism, history, and vibrant daily life. Antoni Gaudi's works, like Sagrada Familia, with its towers still under construction, Casa Batlló and Park Güell decorated with mosaics, are symbols that define urban identity. In the Gothic quarter, narrow streets reveal Roman traces in medieval squares, animated by small cafes and artisan shops. La Rambla, pedestrian artery descending to the port, remains one of the most frequented places, among markets like La Boqueria and street artists. The renovated port and nearby beaches finally attract residents and travelers, creating leisure spaces. Norwegian fjords. Glacial valleys filled with seawater, when ice retreated over 12,000 years ago, creating inlets that penetrate inland for over 200 kilometers, or 124 miles. These are the Norwegian fjords, rocky walls that rise vertically from water up to 1,500 meters or 4,921 feet in height, with waterfalls that plunge directly into the sea. Villages cling to few strips of flat land, connected by ferries and tunnels, carved into mountains. In winter, the sun stays low on the horizon for a few hours, and in summer it never sets for entire weeks. Meteora. Sandstone towers rise from the plain for 400 meters, or 1,312 feet, formed 60 million years ago from deposits of sand and gravel. Byzantine monks built the first hermitages on the tops of these towers in the 11th century, seeking isolation and protection. "24 monasteries were built between the 14th and 16th centuries, reachable only through rope ladders and nets lifted with winches. Today, 6 of the initial 24 are still inhabited and preserve frescoes, manuscripts, and icons from the Byzantine period. Stairs carved in rock have replaced ropes, but the ascent still requires hundreds of steps. Lake Bled. An island emerges in the center of a lake, surrounded by mountains reaching 2,000 meters or 6,562 feet. The church on the island was built in the 17th century over the ruins of a Slavic temple. To reach it, you use pletnas, which are wooden boats pushed with oars 6 meters or 20 feet long. There's also a castle, which overlooks from atop a cliff, 132 meters or 433 feet high, first documented in the year 1004. Lake water comes from underground thermal springs, and in summer can exceed 25 degrees Celsius or 77 degrees Fahrenheit. Edinburgh. The Scottish capital is a city that strikes at first sight. Edinburgh rises on 7 volcanic hills, and every corner tells centuries of history. The center divides into 2 different souls. On one side, there's the medieval Old Town, where the castle rises from rock, as if it were part of it. The buildings rise up to 14 stories, almost medieval skyscrapers, that tell of when space was scarce and they grew upward. On the other side, there's the 18th century New Town, with its straight and elegant streets that seem traced with geometric precision. Here, Georgian sandstone houses with symmetrical facades and colored doors create photographic corners. The Royal Mile connects these 2 areas, and it's a kilometer of cobblestones connecting the castle to Holyrood House Palace. Plitvice Lakes National Park. Sixteen lakes follow each other in cascade for 8 kilometers or 5 miles, connected by 92 waterfalls that change shape every year. Water, in fact, deposits calcium carbonate on mosses and algae, creating natural barriers that grow 1 centimeter or 0.4 inches per year. The park extends over almost 300,000 hectares or 741,000 acres of forest where brown bears, wolves, and lynx live. Upper lakes have turquoise waters, while lower ones show emerald green colors. Wooden walkways cross the water, allowing you to walk a few centimeters from waterfalls. Rome. "2,800 years of history, stratified in a city, one on top of another." The Colosseum could host 50,000 spectators and had underground galleries where gladiators and animals waited before battles. The Pantheon, instead, preserves the largest concrete dome ever built in antiquity, with a central opening of 9 meters or 30 feet. There's also the Roman Forum, which was the beating heart of the empire. Here justice was administered, politics was done, and trade took place. And finally, there's the Vatican, the smallest state in the world, which guards masterpieces like the Sistine Chapel and St. Peter's Basilica, symbols of a spiritual influence that has crossed centuries. Madeira. The Atlantic Ocean has forged this volcanic island, 500 kilometers or 311 miles from the African coast, where steep mountains plunge toward the sea from over 1,800 meters or 5,906 feet in height. The Levada, which are 16th century irrigation channels, cross laurel forests that survived the Ice Age, carrying water from rainy peaks to cultivated lands along the coast. Black basalt cliffs contrast with terraced vineyards, where grapes grow that become fortified wine, exported for centuries. The subtropical climate allows for the continuous blooming of plants from 5 different continents, while villages cling to seemingly impossible slopes, connected by roads that wind through deep valleys. Giant's Causeway. On the northern coast of Northern Ireland, the land hides an enigma that defies all logic. 40,000 basalt columns emerge from the sea like piano keys that no one has ever played. They are almost perfect hexagonal formations, born not from human hands, but from an ancient volcanic eruption, followed by rapid cooling of lava. Local stories, however, speak of an Irish giant who built this road to cross the sea and reach Scotland, where a rival awaited him to face. During the day, the light constantly changes, and the landscape passes from gray to gold, from blue to green. The Atlantic waves, meanwhile, crash against the columns without pause, in a clash that has lasted 60 million years and shows no signs of stopping. Demeter Lakes. The Demeter Massif contains 18 glacial lakes, set among peaks exceeding 2,000 meters, or 6,562 feet. These water mirrors formed during the last ice age, when glaciers carved depressions in limestone rock. The most famous is the so-called Black Lake, which owes its name to the reflection of black pine forests surrounding it. Trails cross deep canyons where emerald-colored rivers flow, while rocky walls preserve traces of animals that inhabit these woods. In winter, snow covers everything, transforming the landscape into white silence. Tatra Mountains. They mark the border between Poland and Slovakia and are part of the Carpathians, forming the highest group of the entire chain. Here, slopes rise with sharp profiles, and valleys guard glacial lakes like Morskie Oko. Trails lead to wooden refuges, and fir forests host chamois and bears, while peaks over 2,000 meters, or 6,562 feet, remain snow-covered for many months of the year. Zakopane at the foot of mountains is the most frequented access point, with traditional wooden architecture and local markets. There are also various ski slopes in winter that mark its landscape. Cinque Terre. Five villages cling to Ligurian cliffs for 800 years now. Monterosso, Vernazza, Corniglia, Manarola, and Riomaggiore form a landscape built by man through centuries of work. The terracing surrounding these towns is born from the need to cultivate vines on impossible slopes, building thousands of dry stone walls. Each village maintains its own identity, and together they form a heritage that belongs to the world. The Mediterranean Sea bathes beaches reachable only on foot, with trails that connect villages between the blue of sea and colored facades of houses. Sintra. A few kilometers from Lisbon hides a world where fantasy takes shape in stone and gardens. Sintra's castles were not built, but seem to have grown from the ground itself. Often, morning fog wraps the hills, and the Pina Palace emerges with its impossible colors, like red, yellow, blue, It's a royal whim that defies all architectural logic. Higher up, the walls of the Moorish castle grow on the mountain ridge, almost like a stone dragon, witness to conquests and defeats that have marked these places. Under the surface of Quinta da Regalera, instead, a labyrinth of tunnels leads to the initiation well, where a spiral descends toward the center of the earth. Sintra is also rich in small bars and local craft shops, perfect for a break between one visit and another, perhaps sipping coffee or admiring a handmade object. Mont Saint-Michel. The sea surrounds this rocky islet, tightening and widening to the rhythm of the tides. Mont Saint-Michel rises on the northern coast of France, in Normandy. At the center, there is a medieval abbey that dominates the entire bay, surrounded by ancient walls and paved alleys. In the heart of the village, small shops and restaurants follow one another along medieval streets. This place has been for centuries a pilgrimage destination, an impregnable fortress, resisting wars and sieges. Still today, crossing the bay during low tide is a special experience. By day, it almost seems like walking on water, while at night, when the abbey lights turn on, everything reflects on the surrounding wet sands, creating an almost surreal atmosphere. Athens. The capital of Greece and the heart of its ancient history. On the height of Acropolis stands the Parthenon, temple dedicated to Athena that still dominates the city. Beside rise the Erechtheion and Propylaea, examples of an architecture that has influenced centuries of construction. At the foot of the hill, daily life intertwines with the past, with modern neighborhoods coexisting with markets, squares, and museums that guard very ancient statues and artifacts. The Plaka neighborhood preserves narrow streets and white houses that almost recall a village, while Syntagma Square hosts Parliament in the changing of the guard. Ring of Kerry. On 179 kilometers, or 111 miles, that don't just show the Irish coast, but tell this land through the centuries that have shaped it. Here the coast meets the ocean in surprising ways, with sandstone cliffs alternating with sheltered bays, while rocky promontories extend into the Atlantic. Roads wind through villages where time seems to have stopped, and at every curve the landscape transforms. Those who come here usually seek spectacular coastal views, but in the end take home something different: like the authenticity of the place, the encounters with people, and stories that are still handed down. Along the route, one encounters ancient circular towers and medieval castle ruins that rise in silence, while stone fortresses blend with the wild landscape surrounding them, as if they had always been part of it. Lisbon. It extends along the Tagus River, built on hills that open toward the Atlantic. Antique trams travel up and down slopes, connecting neighborhoods that preserve different identities. Alfama lives in narrow alleys, between fado music and packed houses. While Belém guards the tower and Geronimos Monastery, memory of great explorations. From atop Miraduros, which are panoramic points, the gaze embraces red roofs in São Jorge Castle. There are also characteristic azulejos, which decorate houses and stations, while pastéis de nata tell a daily tradition. Milan. Milan is a city that unites the past with the fast pace of present. The Duomo, with its spires, dominates the central square and tells 5 centuries of work. Not far away, Galleria Vittorio Emanuele II guards shops and cafes under a glass dome. La Scala Theatre has given voice to opera, while Sforza Castle collects art and history collections. Today, Milan is capital of fashion and design, with events that attract visitors from around the world. The Navigli finally were once waterways, but today have become meeting spaces and nightlife. Gjirokastër. Built in stone and carved along a ridge, it tells Ottoman Albania better than any book. The slate roofs, the residential towers in color style, the courtyards enclosed by thick walls. Everything seems crystallized in time. Walking through its streets, one encounters shops, wood craftsmen, and sellers of hand-woven blankets. Above, the castle dominates the Drino Valley with its dark mass, suspended between the city and the Zagoria Mountains. It is one of the most extensive castles in the Balkans, and houses stone galleries, ancient cannons, a political prison, and even an American aircraft, symbol of communist propaganda. From its terraces, the gaze embraces roofs, hills, and silence. Porto. The Douro River flows toward the ocean, dividing the city into two parts, connected by the Dom Luis Bridge, which is a 45-meter or 148-foot-high metal structure, and connects Porto to Vila Nova de Gaia. The latter is the twin city located on the opposite bank, where the historic port wine cellars are concentrated. Here, wine rests in oak barrels for years, following production methods that master cellarmen have passed down for generations. Returning to Porto, instead, the colorful houses of the Riviera neighborhood climb the hill, creating a labyrinth of cobblestone alleys where blue azulejos cover the facades. These hand-painted ceramic tiles tell religious and historical scenes, decorating not only homes but also churches and São Bento railway station. Black Forest. Extended between hills and mountains, this land guards dense spruce forests, green valleys, and villages that seem forgotten by time. Hiking trails cross waterfalls, gorges, and lakes like Titus Sea, among the best known, where water reflects the sky and surrounding trees. Many villages preserve traditional houses with sloping roofs and cuckoo clocks, born right here in these valleys where time flows almost differently. Among the peaks to the south is Feldberg, the highest mountain in the area, which becomes a destination for skiers and mountaineers when winter arrives and snow covers everything. Local cuisine reflects the same characteristics of the region, with robust dishes warming even on cold days, and the famous chocolate and cherry cake. Transylvania. Carpathian forests guard medieval castles and villages, where time seems to have stopped. Here, between walls of Bran Castle and streets of Sigashora, Dracula's legends are born, which have crossed centuries. Transylvania, however, is not only myth. It's a land where fortified churches tell of communities that resisted invasions, and where shepherds still lead flocks on high-altitude pastures. And when fog rises from woods at dawn, you easily understand why this landscape has fed generations' imagination. Amsterdam. Canals draw a water grid dating back to the Golden Age, when Amsterdam was the center of world trade. Along these waterways, narrow and tall houses face, built once to pay less taxes based on facade width. The city hosts more bicycles than inhabitants and moves following rhythms that privilege slowness. In museums, masterpieces of Rembrandt and Van Gogh are preserved, witnesses of an era when Flemish art dominated Europe. There are also flower markets that float on canals with their bright colors, while old cafes maintain the atmosphere of the past with wooden tables and soft lights. Český Krumlov. The Vltava draws a perfect bend, and inside that curve lives a medieval city. The castle dominating it is the second largest in the country, and it's almost a presence that watches every stone of the historic center. The original urbanism hasn't changed, with Gothic houses speaking with Renaissance and Baroque ones, along streets shining with worn slabs. In the village, there are ancient artisan shops, taverns serving beer on wooden tables, and street artists filling squares with music and color. Since the 18th century, little has changed here. It's a place where Central European architecture has found its purest form and continues to live. Lapland. Beyond the Arctic Circle extends a land where the sun doesn't set for weeks in summer and disappears for months in winter. Lapland is the kingdom of boreal forests, frozen lakes, and northern lights that dance in the night sky. Here lives the Sami people, who for millennia have raised reindeer, moved with dog sleds, and preserved unique language and traditions. In Rovaniemi, capital of Finnish Lapland, there's Santa Claus Village, where thousands of visitors arrive every year to cross the line of Arctic Circle. Temperatures can drop below 40 degrees below 0 Celsius or minus 40 Fahrenheit, yet life doesn't stop but adapts. Florence in Tuscany. Florence gave birth to Renaissance, between walls of palaces that still dominate the historic center. Here, Brunelleschi built a dome that defied known laws of physics, while Michelangelo sculpted marble, transforming it into masterpieces that still today define objective beauty. But Tuscany is not only its capital. It's a region of hills cultivated with vines and olive trees, where medieval villages rise on heights that controlled ancient trade routes. Chianti vineyards produce wines that carry with them centuries of peasant wisdom, and in squares, every stone tells of merchants, bankers, and artists who changed the course of Western civilization. Mostar. A bridge holds this place together for over 400 years, even when it collapsed. The Neretva flows under Stari Most, which is indeed the arch that in 1993 broke during the war, but which was then rebuilt stone by stone as a promise of future. In this city, minarets rise toward the sky beside bell towers, in a dialogue between different faiths that here has lasted for centuries. This fusion also lives in the ancient bazaar, where merchants spread colorful carpets and polish traditional coffee pots, while the air carries scents of Turkish coffee and grilled meat among restored Ottoman buildings. It's a place where division has become encounter. Bruges. Medieval canals of Bruges reflect facades that haven't changed for centuries. This city was one of Europe's main commercial centers in Middle Ages, when its docks welcomed ships loaded with spices and textiles from all over the continent. The Belfry Bell Tower dominates Market Square for 700 years, while in churches works by Flemish primitives are preserved who revolutionized painting. Paved streets lead to artisan shops, where lace is still produced by hand and chocolate. This city has preserved its Gothic architecture, resisting modernization and becoming a living testimony of how European cities appeared before Industrial Revolution. Snowdonia. Mountains rise from the earth like ancestral presences, and fog walks between ancient valleys that count their years in geological eras. Mount Snowdon touches 1,085 meters, or 3,560 feet, and the trails reaching it cross lakes and pastures, where sheep seem like white dots on a green canvas. Oak forests grow among the expanses, moss embraces boulders, and the undergrowth smells of ferns wet by rain that here never really stops falling. Beaches open at the feet of medieval castles, perched on rocks challenging the sea. In Welsh, this place means land of eagles, and this wild air has never gone away. The rocks are up to 500 million years old and were ocean floor when life learned to breathe. Every stone is a page of geology you can touch, while wind carries Celtic stories that still make hearts beat for those passing through here. Krakow. It develops along the Vistula River and guards centuries of Polish history. Market Square, among Europe's largest, is surrounded by Renaissance palaces, Gothic churches, and the Cloth Hall. Wawel Castle, ancient royal residence, dominates the hill and tells the city's central role in Middle Ages. In Jewish quarters, synagogues and narrow streets keep alive the memory of a community that marked local identity. Today, however, Krakow is also a university city, animated by students and cultural events. Walking in the historic center means crossing different eras, between medieval towers, museums, and cafes, in a place that continues to interweave past and present. Alsace. Situated at the border with Germany, Alsace has a soul divided between two cultures. Its villages seem to have emerged from other times, with pastel-colored houses that have exposed beams, canals that cross the historic centers, and flowers that adorn balconies and windows. Colmar is a perfect example, with its medieval quarters still intact, which during the Christmas period become part of a true fairy tale. But this is also land of precious wines with orderly rows that cross hills and gentle slopes. The famous wine route connects villages like Riviera and Eguisheim, fundamental stops to discover historic cellars and taste local specialties. Sicily. Sicily emerges at the center of Mediterranean as a crossroads of cultures. The Valley of the Temples, along with the theaters of Syracuse and Taormina, showcases the island's Greek heritage, while mosaics, domes, and palaces reveal Arab, Byzantine, and Norman influences. Palermo offers lively markets and Baroque churches. Catania instead lives in shadow of Etna, the volcano that marks the landscape and island life. Coasts alternate cliffs and beaches, while interior guards countryside of olive trees, citrus fruits, and vines. There are also Aeolian Islands, which emerge as volcanic peaks to the north, or Noto and Ragusa, which shows Sicilian Baroque in its purest form. Azores. Nine volcanic islands emerge from Atlantic, 1,500 kilometers, or 932 miles, from Portuguese coast. Extinct craters host lakes that change color during the day, from emerald green to cobalt blue, because of minerals dissolved in water. Thermal springs gush directly from Earth, heated by magma that still pulses beneath surface. Whales cross these waters during migrations, together with dolphins and sea turtles that find abundant food in ocean currents. Often fog descends from mountains, covering everything for hours, but then dissolves, revealing mighty cliffs that fall into ocean. Copenhagen. It's a capital that lives in contact with water and with North Sea. The Nihon neighborhood, with its colored houses and moored boats, is the best-known face, while the Little Mermaid statue recalls Andersen's fairy tale. Amalienborg Palace is still royal residence, and Tivoli, among Europe's oldest parks, has welcomed visitors for generations. The bicycle is the most used daily means, with bike paths interweaving between canals and squares. Museums guard Nordic artworks and Viking artifacts, while the port has transformed into a bathing area where people swim even in winter. Sigishuara. In the heart of Transylvania, walls hold tight a medieval citadel, living without interruption since the 12th century. Clocks mark time as they always have, and the clock tower watches over everything since 1360. In the foundations of this tower was born Vlad the Impaler, the man who became legend, and then Dracula, bringing travelers here from every part of the world. Colorful houses line along cobblestone streets that have lived the era of merchants, nobles, and invaders. During the medieval festival in July, the city takes a step back in time, with squares filling with knights and artisans, and for a few days the present disappears. Tallinn. Tallinn overlooks Baltic Sea and preserves a historic center enclosed by medieval walls. Towers, squares, and Gothic churches show the past of Hanseatic League, when the city was an important commercial hub. On Tumpea Hill, castle and Orthodox cathedral are found, symbols of power and religion that have marked its history. Over centuries, the city passed under different dominations, from Sweden to Russia, leaving architectural and cultural signs. Today, however, it's a capital that unites past heritage with an innovative present, with a digital economy among Europe's most advanced. Geethorn. A water village born from peat cutters' work, who dug earth to extract fuel, creating canals that still today cross the town. Traditional houses with thatched roofs line up along banks, connected by dozens of wooden bridges. Here, life moves slowly on small boats, while paved roads remain few and outside center. Manicured gardens and water silence define landscape, offering a glimpse of a way of living completely shaped by environment. Geethorn shows how man adapted to water, transforming it into an integral part of daily life in Netherlands. Sardinia. It's an almost intact island that offers very different landscapes from each other. Northern coast hosts Costa Smeralda, with inlets and limpid waters, while to west are found Cappadocia Cliffs and Asinara Island, today National Park. To south, near Cagliari, extends the long Poeto Beach, while further west you encounter Piscinas Dunes, among Europe's highest. Finally, sea caves open along entire coast, reachable by boat or on foot, while medieval inland villages preserve stone historic centers and Romanesque churches. Provence. Imagine strolling through infinite fields of lavender that color the landscape purple. This is the magic of Provence, where every corner seems painted by an artist. Here, hidden among the flowers, stands the ancient abbey of Sananca, where even today monks maintain alive the traditions of 8 centuries ago. Climbing up the hills, there is also Les Baux de Provence, a village perched on rock that seems to have emerged from a medieval fairy tale. Its old castle will surely bring to mind stories of knights. In this area of France, one cannot fail to visit Roussillon, a unique town where everything is colored red. Houses, streets, and rocks are tinged with different shades thanks to ochre, a mineral that has made this place truly special. Not far away, the village of Gourds climbs the hill with little streets that wind in spirals, just as they were created hundreds of years ago. Stockholm. Here, Baltic Sea slips between granite islets and ochre palaces, creating a capital that lives on water. Stockholm is not only Gamla stan, neighborhood and medieval alleys, but it's the contrast between sober elegance of historic buildings and creative scene that bubbles in peripheral neighborhoods. Summer days last almost 24 hours, while in winter light disappears early, leaving space to lights that fill every window. It's a city that has made functionality and aesthetic, where design is not decoration, but daily philosophy. The archipelago surrounding it, moreover, counts thousands of islands, with some who live there year-round, while others reach them only to breathe. Innsbruck. Imagine a city where trams cross historic center, with Alps literally looming behind. Innsbruck is this: an alpine crossroads that for centuries has connected North and South Europe, leaving stratifications of Habsburg culture among its streets. The golden roof shines at center of Old City, with its golden tiles covering imperial balcony. The Inn River, instead, crosses city, dividing historic center from modern neighborhoods. There's also Nordket, a mountain chain that rises vertically near urban center, allowing passage from bars to snow-capped peaks in 20 minutes by cable car. Svalbard Islands. The islands are a refuge for Arctic fauna, with polar bears, foxes, and reindeer moving between the frozen valleys, while seabirds nest on the cliffs that plunge into the sea. Balearic Islands. In the Western Mediterranean opens an archipelago, uniting marine landscapes and traces of ancient civilizations. Mallorca is the largest island, with Sierra de Tramontana mountains descending to the sea, among villages and terraces cultivated with olive trees. While the city of Palma houses the Gothic cathedral and an always active port. Menorca is quieter, marked by turquoise coves, natural harbors, and prehistoric settlements telling an ancient story. Ibiza instead shows two souls. On one side, Renaissance walls. On the other, nightlife that made the island famous. Not forgetting beaches and beach bars. Formentera remains the smallest and most intimate island, reachable only by ferry, with whitest beaches and transparent waters, making it unique in the Mediterranean. Phoenician, Roman, and Arab roots are still readable in historic centers and popular festivals of the archipelago. Berlin. The German capital opens between wide avenues, rivers crossing it, and neighborhoods never stopping changing shape. Brandenburg Gate stands there, firm between two eras that are those of empires and that of the Wall, dividing the world in two halves. The remains of that border still exist, but now they're covered with murals, speaking of freedom and those not wanting to forget. The Reichstag, where Parliament sits, bears a glass dome, meaning transparency. On Museum Island instead, 5 buildings preserve objects having crossed millennia, from Mesopotamia to ancient Egypt, true fragments of distant worlds resting here. A few steps away, cafes fill up, and markets animate streets with voices and colors. Cyprus. An island divided by a green line that also cuts capital. Cyprus bears signs of every Mediterranean civilization. There are Greek temples, Roman mosaics, Crusader castles, and Ottoman mosques. Greek part and Turkish part coexist separated since 1974, creating unique geopolitical situation in Europe. But beyond politics, remain beaches where water is so transparent it seems unreal. Mountain villages in Troodos, where they still produce wine like 3,000 years ago, and Aphrodite's rock at Paphos, where according to myth goddess was born from Mediterranean waves. Munich. At the foot of the Alps, this city holds together what seems opposite. Tradition meets innovation. Baroque squares coexist with popular markets, and local roots breathe international air. Marienplatz is the center of everything, dominated by neo-Gothic town hall, where the glockenspiel marks hours. Historic breweries guard now ancient rituals, and English gardens offer green and water, flowing between trees. The Residenz shows the wealth of a court having marked Bavarian history for generations, while the future is seen in modern neighborhoods and Olympic Park, built for the 1972 Games. Munich is this balance where the past doesn't go away, but makes room for what arrives. French Riviera. From Saint-Tropez to Menton extends a coast that has conquered worldwide fame for its combination of natural beauty and luxury. The cobalt blue sea laps golden beaches, while elegant cities succeed one another along this stretch of Mediterranean. Monaco attracts with its sumptuous casino, while the city streets transform once a year into the Formula One Grand Prix track, creating one of the most exclusive sporting events in the world. Cannes, instead, pulses to the rhythm of its famous film festival. International stars walk the red carpet, while luxury boutiques in the surrounding streets offer creations from the most renowned designers. Nice finally shows another face of the Riviera with its lively waterfront, where locals and tourists mingle. There is also the flower market, which adds color and fragrances to this city. Bern. The river Aare flows through the city, tracing narrow bends, and along its banks stretches a historic center built of limestone, protected by UNESCO. The covered arcades wind for kilometers or miles, sheltering small shops that open every morning, and cafes where time seems to slow down. The medieval clock tower still strikes the hours, while just beyond, the green dome of the Parliament rises above the surrounding buildings. When summer arrives, the river becomes the heart of everything. Its clear and cold waters, welcoming those who let themselves drift with the current. Among the narrow streets stand cultural institutions, open-air markets, and courtyards that remain hidden from view. It is a discreet federal capital where history weighs heavily but never oppresses, and daily life flows with an almost natural lightness. Catalonia. Region with strong identity sense, unites sea, mountains, and fertile plains. Barcelona, the capital, preserves medieval neighborhoods and Gaudi's famous architectures. Costa Brava alternates rocky coves and fishing villages like Cappadocia with lively locations like Lloret de Mar. In the interior stands Montserrat Monastery, pilgrimage place surrounded by spectacular rock formations. Each area of Catalonia reveals a distinct face, in continuous balance between modernity and tradition. Oslo. The museums safeguard the memory of polar expeditions and Viking ships, testimonies of a maritime tradition that crosses the country's history. This is not only Norway's administrative center, but also a meeting point where innovation and memory touch each other every day. Helsinki. Overlooking Gulf of Finland, Helsinki has that air of city always looking towards sea, even when frozen. Neoclassical architecture of center dialogues with Nordic brutalism and contemporary design. Every era, in fact, has left its mark without erasing others. In summer, terraces fill as soon as sun comes out. In winter, city retreats into interior spaces lit with maniacal care. Few European cities manage to be so modern, remaining deeply rooted in their Nordic identity. Geneva. Lake Geneva stretches before the city, which has always lived as a place of borders and exchanges. Its waters are dominated by the Jet d'eau, a fountain that has become the city's emblem, visible from every point along the shore. Nearby, the old town holds St. Peter's Cathedral, and a maze of cobblestone streets filled with cafes and bookshops that never seem to close. The presence of international institutions, such as the UN headquarters, gives the city a cosmopolitan character, reflected in the languages spoken and in the faces of those who live here. Walking along the lakeside allows you to see distant mountains, manicured parks, and boats that link the two shores. It is a city that breathes with the rhythm of the lake and with the rhythm of its people. Dublin. The Liffey River cuts the city, and along its banks, Dublin lives as Ireland's cultural center, where literature and beer mix in the soul of every street. Trinity College, which is the island's oldest academic institution, protects the Long Room, which is a gallery with oak arches containing thousands of ancient volumes, and when entering it feels like walking in a cathedral made of knowledge. In the Temple Bar district, elegant Georgian buildings overlook cobblestone streets, pulsing with artistic life, with music coming from pubs and with colors on walls. Not far away, Dublin Castle rises on Viking foundations, and its walls tell centuries of history, conflicts, and resistance that gave shape to this capital's identity. Pamukkale. White terrace pool, full of turquoise water, descending along slope. Seems like lunar landscape. Instead, it's limestone deposited by thermal springs over millennia. Ancient Romans built here Hierapolis, thermal city where people came to heal from entire empire. Today, natural pools are UNESCO heritage and partially accessible. You walk barefoot on white travertine, dipping feet in waters gushing warm from earth. Tyrol. In the heart of the Austrian Alps, Tyrol breathes with a rhythm that's only its own. Snow blankets the peaks, then descends toward the pastures spreading through the valley. And in between lies the most authentic side of Austria. Wooden chalets and popular festivals stand beside modern ski slopes and new buildings, and past and present coexist every day without fighting. Rivers descending from mountains cross intact and unchanged villages and carry with them ancient stories. Tyrol welcomes those loving nature in every season, with skiing when snow falls and long walks when there's sun. And it's always an open door for those arriving from afar. It's a land asking nothing, only to be lived. Costa del Sol. Facing Mediterranean in southern Andalusia, there's coastal strip over 150 kilometers or 93 miles long. Beaches vary from urban sandy stretches like those of Malaga and Torremolinos to more sheltered bays among cliffs. Marbella is known as tourist city with luxury hotels, while Nerja offers spectacular views from famous Balcón de Europa. Interior is dotted with pueblos blancos, which are whitewashed villages looking towards sea. Mild climate has favored constant tourism all year, finding in this destination sea, culture, and accessibility in every season. Malta. "7,000 years of history compressed in 316 square kilometers, or 122 square miles. Malta is honey-colored limestone, megalithic temples older than pyramids, fortified capitals built by knights, and sea shading into every blue tone. Valletta is Baroque fortress city, where every corner tells battles and sieges. Gozo and Camino, sister islands, offer slower and more rural rhythms. Mdina, ancient capital, rises inland with its medieval walls and silent streets, crossing noble palaces. Madrid. The Spanish capital lives between elegant squares and markets, where people shout and laugh. In the historic center, buildings coming from the Habsburg era alternate with noisy cafes, where life runs fast. Prado Museum guards European masterpieces having crossed centuries, and the Royal Palace recalls when monarchs commanded here. Green spaces don't lack, like Riviera Park, once a royal garden, and today a place for walks and boats on the lake. In the evening, in neighborhoods like Malasagne or Lavapiés, venues mix tradition and modernity, and night doesn't end early. Madrid is a city without precise schedules, with dinners arriving late and streets staying animated until dawn. The heart of everything is Costa del Sol and Gran Via, meeting points and symbol of kilometer zero, from where all roads of Spain are said to start. Montenegro. Its name means Black Mountain, and just look at Durmitor peaks to understand why. But Montenegro is also Adriatic fjords penetrating inland, perched medieval villages, and beaches alternating golden sand with stony coves. Here, Venetian, Orthodox, and Ottoman heritages coexist, with each city telling different domination. Kotor village is a stone labyrinth, protected by walls climbing mountain, while Budva transformed into seaside destination without losing walled historic center. Interior instead is wild, with glacial lakes, deep canyons, and forests where bears and wolves still live. Ghent. Canals reflecting medieval facades, bell towers piercing sky, and university life filling pubs until late night. Ghent was one of Europe's richest cities in Middle Ages, thanks to wool trade, and Gothic architecture still proves it today. Gravenstein, Count's Castle, dominates center with its gray stone towers. Same historic center can be toured on foot in few hours, discovering at every corner hidden squares, medieval bridges, and guild houses reflected in water. Industrial warehouses along canals, moreover, have become cultural spaces, with bicycles invading every street, and gastronomic scene mixing Flemish tradition and experimentation. Cambridge. In the heart of England lies Oxford's eternal rival. And it's Cambridge, where genius flows like the River Cam. Its waters caress colleges that look almost like castles, and bridges connect not only shores, but centuries of tradition. And then there are also the backs, which are lawns so green they seem painted. At the center of everything, King's College rises like a cathedral of knowledge, with its 15th century Gothic chapel that is music-made architecture. At Christmas, when the choir sings, the entire world stops to listen to those voices that cross screens and reach straight to the hearts of millions of people. But Cambridge's true magic is the minds it has forged. For example, in the Cavendish laboratory, they unveiled the secrets of DNA and opened the doors of modern physics. And today they're inventing the future with technologies that in 20 years will seem normal, but which are born right here. Valencia. Lying on the eastern coast, the city holds together ancient heritages and futuristic forms. In the historic center, the cathedral preserves a chalice venerated as the Holy Grail, and medieval towers recall when everything was enclosed within walls. Not far away, the Turia Garden extends in the bed of a river that was diverted, with kilometers of green crossed by historic bridges and avenues, where trees provide shade. Life also pulses in the City of Arts and Sciences, which is a modern complex hosting museums, an aquarium, and spaces where culture takes new forms. The central market fills the air with scents of oranges and spices, and here Mediterranean cuisine finds in paella its best-known dish. The sea is not far, with Malvarosa Beach just minutes from the center, where sand meets the city. Loire Valley. A journey through the Loire Valley reveals a world of castles that emerge from the morning mist. The towers rise beyond the treetops, while Renaissance gardens extend to the horizon. The Loire River flows between these fortresses, which have witnessed battles and love stories, and have shaped France. Medieval villages hide among the vineyards, and their paved streets lead to squares where time seems to have stopped. Local markets transform these spaces into theaters of daily life, with the fragrance of freshly baked bread mixing with local traditions. Chambord Castle dominates the landscape with its 426 rooms, defying architectural logic. Chenonceau reflects in the waters of the Cher River, while Amboise guards the secrets of Leonardo da Vinci, whose spirit still hovers in the corridors. Villandry instead reveals gardens that are true works of art and present intricate geometric designs. Delft. A city seeming from a Golden Age painting. Delft develops around canals and water reflects half-timbered houses and medieval churches, having crossed centuries. In shops scattered throughout the center, artisans hand-paint white porcelains with blue motifs, and art never stopped here. The same streets hosting these shops were walked by Johannes Vermeer, who immortalized a neighborhood in his painting. The new Kerk dominates the central square, with its bell tower, and inside rest several Dutch monarchs, linking the royal family's history to that of the city. From here, the tower climb offers a view extending to Rotterdam, embracing a landscape of canals and fields, describing the most authentic Holland. Oxford. Welcome to the Temple of Knowledge. Here for 900 years, the world elite has been formed. And you just need to walk among medieval colleges to immediately understand why. Silent courtyards and Gothic spires that challenge the sky. This is the landscape where ideas that change the world are born. Inside the Bodleian Library sleep millions of secrets, with books and manuscripts that are just waiting to be discovered. And then look up, and here's the Radcliffe camera, with that dome that everyone photographs, but few truly observe. But Oxford doesn't live only in the past. In its laboratories, at this moment, someone is discovering the future, doing research that tomorrow will save lives, change medicine, and revolutionize science. Saint-Michel. It is a journey through time into the Dutch countryside of the 18th century. This open-air village is famous for its historic windmills and its characteristic wooden houses, which have preserved their functional charm and old-world style. Here, visitors can witness up close how windmills once powered everything, from grain milling to oil pressing, to paper production. Saint-Michel is not just an open-air museum, but a living community that continues to uphold traditional Dutch craftsmanship. Interestingly, many of the windmills are still working today, and some are open to the public for live demonstrations. The village also features shops selling local products like Dutch cheese, handcrafted chocolate, and traditional souvenirs, making it a perfect place to experience authentic Dutch culture. Normandy. Normandy is a mosaic of fertile countryside, windy coasts and villages rich in history. The D-Day beaches bear witness to decisive events of World War II, with museums and memorials dedicated to their memory. In the cliffs of Etretat, instead, spectacular natural arches, shaped by the wind, dominate the landscape. Small ports like Honfleur maintain intact the maritime atmosphere of the past. In the interior, instead, farms and orchards give life both to cheeses like Camembert and to local cider, which are two authentic symbols of Norman gastronomy. Liverpool. The port, having seen millions of emigrants depart for the New World, still preserves Victorian warehouses, transformed into museums and shops. The Beatles played in Matthew Street clubs before changing music history, and today those venues continue hosting emerging bands every evening. The two cathedrals, Anglican and Catholic, face each other at a distance of a few hundred meters, representing the coexistence of religious communities, having marked the city's identity. Port basins, declared UNESCO heritage, testify to the era when Liverpool controlled 40% of world trade, while restored ships recall ocean crossings and trade routes. Football finally unites entire neighborhoods through stadiums, becoming lay temples. Algarve Coast. The Algarve reveals itself through stone arches carved by the ocean. Ponta da Piedade cuts the Atlantic, with rock formations and sea caves opening in rock walls, accessible only by sea. The city of Lagos preserves walls from the Moorish period, and the port fills with fishing boats returning at dawn with the sound of engines and smell of salt. At Sagres instead, the fort juts over the ocean from a promontory defying waves, a point where land ends and water begins. Tides every day reveal and hide beaches set among rocks, and small corners of sand appearing and disappearing. May and September offer ideal climate to explore this coast, with the ocean calming, allowing access to sea caves, and temperatures becoming pleasant for excursions along trails embracing the sea. Hamburg. A port city par excellence, develops around the Elbe River in its navigable canals. Speicherstadt, ancient warehouse district in red brick, tells the era of colonial trade when goods arrived from every corner of the world. Not far away, Elbphilharmonie raises its glass architecture, symbol of the contemporary city looking forward. The center hosts covered markets, elegant shops, and crowded streets, while neighborhoods along the port preserve the popular soul, that of workers in taverns. Hamburg is also a freshwater city with Binnenalster Lake at the center of urban life, where people walk and stop to watch. But its character remains linked to the sea, because here is one of Europe's largest ports, departure and arrival point of intercontinental routes, connecting distant worlds. Bordeaux. It is a city that lives around wine, with a history of commerce dating back to Roman times. The streets of the historic center, UNESCO heritage, show classical elegance, with 18th century buildings and animated squares. The Cathedral of Saint-André dominates the city, soaring with its Gothic towers and crowning an atmosphere of elegance that permeates the entire historic core. The Garonne River divides the city, crossed by historic bridges like the Pont de Pierre. In the evening, along the river, the city comes alive with lights that reflect on the water, creating the ideal atmosphere for a walk or an outdoor dinner. Manchester. In the heart of northern England extends a city of 500,000 inhabitants, having transformed its industrial past into cultural attraction. Red brick neighborhoods host food markets where cuisines from every continent mix. While canals once serving factories, today offer pedestrian paths between murals and nightclubs. The Museum of Science and Industry tells technological evolution through steam locomotives and original machinery, connecting the nearby Victorian buildings of the center, where shopping alternates with historic theaters. Old Trafford and the City of Football welcome visitors even on non-match days, with tours that reveal the spaces reserved for players and the trophies won by the two historic rivals. The cathedral dates to the 15th century and coexists with contemporary architectures like Beetham Tower. While in northern quarter pubs, the music scene attracts those seeking the city's authentic soul. Canary Islands. In the Atlantic, off the African coast, rises an archipelago shaped by the fire volcanoes. Tenerife, the largest among the islands, houses Mount Tide, which is Spain's highest peak and center of a national park that crosses landscapes of craters and lava flows. To the north, green slopes host banana plantations and villages of colonial origin, like La Orotava and La Laguna, the latter a UNESCO heritage site. The city of Santa Cruz instead unites port, markets, and modernity, while the southern coast is marked by tourist beaches and trails that climb toward more remote mountains. Then there is Lanzarote Island, which fascinates with Timanfaya National Park, which has vineyards grown in ash, and Cesar Manrique's architectures that blend art and nature. Gran Canaria, continuing, mixes dunes and beaches to the south, with mountainous gorges and inland villages. And there's Las Palmas serving as cultural and commercial center. Fuerteventura, finally, is characterized by expanses of light sands beaten by wind, refuge of surfers and fishermen. The smaller islands like La Palma, La Gomera, and El Hierro guard forests and reserves. Jurassic Coast. Imagine walking through 185 million years in 155 kilometers or 96 miles. Welcome to the Jurassic Coast, one of the planet's most extraordinary shorelines. From Devon to Dorset, this coast tells Earth's secret history, layer by layer, with cliffs unveiling evolution's chapters. If you look carefully at these multicolored rocks, they're like pages of a book written by Earth itself. Triassic, Jurassic, and Cretaceous, geological eras that here you can touch with your own hands. And among these stones hide fossils of creatures populating oceans now lost, with every storm revealing new secrets and new footprints of the past. Walking on coastal trails, moreover, one understands why UNESCO protected this place, which is not only a coast, but a library of life. Frankfurt. City of banks and skyscrapers, rises on the main riverbanks. The financial center hosts the European Central Bank and a skyline unequaled in Germany, with glass towers rising toward the sky. But a few steps from modern buildings, the main square called Römerberg preserves half-timbered houses and the ancient town hall. Along the river, museums form a true cultural district, and the botanical garden of Palmengarten offers a green oasis, with exotic greenhouses and flowered avenues, where one forgets concrete. Frankfurt is also linked to Goethe, who was born here and left traces in his house museum. It's a city living between modernity and tradition, without choosing one or the other. Sofia. At the foot of Vitosha Massif, Sofia presents itself as a living mosaic where every era has left its own imprint. Alexander Nevsky Cathedral, with its golden dome shining under the Balkan sun, is much more than a church. It's a symbol of Bulgarian liberation from Ottoman rule and one of the world's largest Orthodox temples. Under the modern city streets, archaeological excavations continuously reveal new chapters of its history. In the ancient Roman city coexists today with Ottoman mosques and medieval churches, creating an architectural dialogue without equal. The Rotunda of St. George, moreover, is the oldest construction in the city and hides inside frescoes telling 16 centuries of uninterrupted Christianity, colors, and faces having crossed time without breaking. Verdon Gorge. In southeastern France, the Verdon River has carved for millions of years one of the most spectacular canyons in Europe. Its turquoise waters flow between limestone rock walls up to 700 meters or 2,297 feet high. There are panoramic trails like the Saint-Blanc-Martel that offer incredible views and allow discovering an environment rich in wildlife. Sports lovers can practice kayaking, climbing, or paragliding, while those seeking tranquility find characteristic villages like Moustier-Sainte-Marie. The gorges are part of a protected natural park, created to preserve a fragile and unique ecosystem. Bavarian Alps. At the border between Germany and Austria extends a territory made of mountains touching the sky, lakes born from glaciers, and valleys where silence reigns. Zugspitze, Germany's highest peak, offers panoramas crossing borders and extending beyond. Alpine villages preserve wooden chalets and customs still following the rhythm of seasons. When winter arrives, ski slopes animate resorts like Garmisch-Partenkirchen, while in summer, trails and refugees welcome those seeking the mountain on foot. Beside nature, monasteries and castles dot the valleys, witnesses of a past made of devotion and local power. Alpine lakes like Eibsee reflect forests and snow-capped peaks, creating scenery that stops the gaze.